Hi, I'm Michael Hill with Canine Chronicle TV, your host of Next Gen, focusing on showcasing the next generation of the sport of purebred dogs. And I'm so excited to be joined today, virtually, with my dear friend Kelly Shupp of Mountain View Kennels, known for some famous German Wirehead pointers. How are you, Kelly?
Good, how are you?
Good. Why don't we start today with talking about your start in dogs? I know it was young for you with your mother getting involved. We've already interviewed her. Tell us what it was like in those early days.
Well, my mom literally took us to dog shows when we were toddlers. But when we moved to Northern Virginia, she became very good friends with Howard and Heidi Huber. And we got our first wire hair through them from Helen. And, we started going every weekend, and I started drying Springer ears before, I could barely reach the table. And, I started working for handlers when I was 10. I worked for Jane and Greg Myers with 10 and 11 during the summers. And then after Jane and Greg, I had always helped handlers whenever I went to shows. I remember Dougie Holloway teaching me how to do whiskers on a whippet when I was 10. And so I worked
Normal 10-year-old education.
Yeah, I worked for Kelly Fitzgerald and Chris Berg in high school, and then I traveled with Angie Lloyd, end of high school, beginning of college, and apprenticed under her. And then after college, I traveled with Phil and Oakley, Phil Booth and Edie Booth. And then I moved to Brazil, and I worked for handlers down there. So I spent 3 years in Brazil, and when I came home, I decided that I was ready to go out on my own, and here we are.
The whole time you were doing all this, was it clear to you that this is what you were going to do for your profession, for your life, or was it one of those things you just kind of fell into?
Absolutely. I went to college, which I'm really glad. I kind of fought tooth and nail. I didn't want to go to college. Angie was a big supporter of me going to college. Damra also. My family obviously wanted me to, but I was like, this is silly. I know what I want to do. Why am I going to spend all this money? But I'm very glad, hindsight, 2020, I'm super glad that I got my degree and I had that experience, because we all know, it's a piece of paper, but the college experience is very important. And,
and dog shows don't last forever. And, when years like this, where you do have to kind of try other things in business and whatnot, it's just helpful to have a broader background. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about that Brazil experience, because that's pretty unique, I think, for somebody to be able to spend 3 years in another country, showing dogs. How did that compare to the United States?
Their dog shows are very different. So I worked for Max and Olivia Kreiner, who run breeding programs and help to manage Victor Malzoni's dogs here and throughout the world. And they actually just recently moved to the U.S., so welcome. And anyways, dog shows are very different. They're a lot smaller. Their biggest dog shows are, 400, 500 dogs. Most of the time they have 3 shows in one day. So it's very hectic, and the landscape is just smaller, right? As far as how many handlers they have and things like that. Max and Olivia showed a lot of dogs, but not all the handlers show that many dogs. It's very a have and have not country. So most of the clients are very, very wealthy. And they're very breed specific, right? Mr. Malzoni, mainly with the terriers and things like that. They had another client, Luis Fernandez, that had Berners and Goldens, and they had large-scale breeding programs because of that, because they have to import dogs and things like that for their breeding programs to move forward, especially for small breeds like Chinese Cresteds, for example. Livia was one of the first people to bring lots of Chinese Cresteds that were able to be bred and create a breeding program in Brazil. And so things like that, people don't think about the fact that, they had a kennel with 60, 70 dogs in it, but in order to have a breeding program, they had to.
Right, there's not all these other breeders to use.
Right, exactly. So stud dogs aren't, a wealth, things like that. Of course, there's breeds like Goldens and Boxers and Dobermans where there's a lot more of them. But it's very, very different. And any judge that goes there to judge will tell you it's fun. They have a lot of fun at their dog shows. But it's just very different.
Yeah. And then so when you came back from there, I'm sure that definitely shaped your understanding of, just how to prioritize things and breeding programs, and that only probably helps your education, you know, as far as becoming a professional handler, right?
Absolutely. As a breeder, I'm very grateful for the experience that I got with Livia, because they were running so many breeding programs. I helped whelp a lot of litters of puppies, and she's also a vet, so the knowledge and things like that I learned were huge as a breeder, which yes, I'm a professional handler, but I'm definitely consider myself a breeder first. My wire hair breeding program is super important to me, that I've taken over from my mom, as she doesn't really own any wire hairs anymore.
They're yours now.
And my husband also has German wire hair pointers, so we've kind of integrated. He has a more field focused program, but they were always champions and everything like that. So we've definitely combined our breeding programs now, and I'm also very lucky to be involved with Mr. Malzoni, that I have his breeding females too, and we move forward together. So.
Amazing. And you have a litter due soon, or just had litters?
I have a bitch that we'll find out. I palpated her this week. I think I felt some things, but I'll be able to we're going to do a blood test next week. So hopefully, there weren't many shows on the East Coast in November, so I'm happy to have a litter in November.
And, you know, especially with a breed like that too, where there's not tons of them, you know, it's important to keep those breeds active and preserve those breeds, right?
Absolutely. And actually, this hunting season time, I have huge amounts of people wanting puppies. I mean, if I had litters during quarantine, I just like everybody, right? Everybody could have sold all their puppies during quarantine. Yeah, but we're so specific in who we can sell puppies to. It's not a breed for everyone, and I'm very particular about who, you know, when we do our background things with puppy buyers, and it's really important in our breed to not get puppies back, that you know where they're going and what the person wants to use them for. And they're not a golden retriever. Not anybody can raise them. They need structure, they need training, and all of those kinds of things. And that's hard. That's something that during quarantine, you know, I was getting 3 and 4 emails a day. And, you know, sometimes I was like, this isn't the breed for you. You know, you have 6 children and this, that, and the other, and it's too much. It's not the place for a wire hair puppy.
Give us a crash course on wire hairs, like both physically and mentally, like the priorities of the breed, things you're focusing on, like that are needed in the breed right now, and also what makes the right home for a wire.
So mentally, wire hairs are very smart. And I think we've come a long way temperament-wise in the last 15, 20 years. When we first got into them, you would see at specialties, a lot of them shying away, more bitches shying away, dogs being a little bit sharper, growling when people are going over them. It's definitely gotten way better. But that structure that I was talking about mentally, they need that. I tell my puppy people, even if their job is going to the mailbox with you every day or walking with the kids to the bus stop, they need a job. They need something they do every day, and they need a lot of exercise, especially for the first 2 to 3 years. They were bred to hunt everything, basically, and also protect the home. So they will be very protective. So, you know, giving them boundaries and things like that within the home, and when you take them places, super important. The mental stimulation that they need to not get bored and do bad things because they're smart and they're looking for things to get into is super important. Yeah, exactly. So that's really important. And like I always say golden retrievers just because they're the easiest to compare. They're not golden retrievers, right? They don't get along with everybody. You can't just walk them up to any other dog. Yeah, I work hard, and if I hand you one, you can trust that it's not going to act like an idiot because I don't allow it. But
left to their own devices, it's not as push button as, let's say, a golden retriever.
Yeah, or English pointer. That's very easy to get along with.
That's why I keep going to your mom for the English pointer.
Yeah, they're the best pets. The best kept secret in the sporting group is the pointer, as far as I'm concerned.
Let's talk about like as far as structure. Yeah. No, you're good.
Structurally, I think one of the biggest things wire hairs are facing right now is fronts. Every sporting dog person says that, right? They're all losing any angle on their front and things like that. We also, as a small breed, we got kind of bred into a corner as far as a lot of people using a similar line of sire. And now 2-3 generations down the road, we're basically doubling up and tripling up on those sires because there's nowhere else to go because everybody bred to them. So while they attributed good things, it's complicated for people that don't understand how to line breed. And I think that's pulling back into those straight fronts and things like that because we just keep having to double up on it. And that also contributes to temperament issues. There's issues in the line, then it's just doubled up on, things like that.
It's gonna bring it right to the front.
Yeah, exactly. And where I think that raising them is 90%, that 10% of genetic temperament issue is there. And, you know, especially when you're picking puppies for homes and things like that. Now, after the amount of litters that I've had, I can tell by 6 weeks, like, oh, this is a puppy that needs to go to a strong hunting home, or this is a puppy that's going to be great with a family. So those kinds of things are important, and something that all breeders in our breed need to pay attention to. Yeah.
No, I love that. That's it. Yeah. And so I think it's one of those things too, where it's like every breed goes in their peaks and valleys, and there's popular dogs that make an impact, but also bring, you know, no dog is perfect. And when they are doubled up on, it's not as easy as just putting more and more of that dog in the pedigree to get that same dog.
Exactly.
I love that. Well, we'll be excited to see what your puppies look like. Let's shift to talking about the more personal side of the sport of dogs, because I know for you, that's been a major part of your life. I personally have traveled with you and your lovely son, Porter. What is it like raising a child, you know, at dog shows, in the dog show community? And let's also talk about like some of your most intimate relationships in the dog show world, like Adam and Katie, Phil and Amy, and how those kind of started and how they've progressed as you guys have kind of grown and progressed in your careers.
So raising a child in the dog show world is, well, Porter's 2.5, so that's a challenge in and of itself. But it's amazing. Yes, it's amazing when I go to shows and I do have the support, especially because I'm not in a couple traveling like Phil and Amy and Adam and Katie. So, you know, I can't just go to a ring while my husband keeps the baby, right? So, luckily, all of these shows being, you know, we've had so few shows that all my people are always at the shows that I go to, pretty much. So Adam and Katie and Max and Olivia are like, they've been huge support systems during this, especially with their trailers, because Porter can go and watch Netflix in their trailer when I do have to go to the ring and things like that. So that's amazing. I mean, the support system, anytime you have a child, support system is so important, just because you can't be with them 24/7, right?
It takes a village.
And it does. And the Dog Show Village is amazing. I mean, we all, you know, those of us that grew up on the East Coast together, we still talk about all our stories of, you know, stupid things that we did and hanging out and doing this, or the shows that we would, like, we used to all go to the Hershey Park shows, and they used to be right across the street from Hershey Park. So we would all go one day, things like that, that are lifelong memories. And people like Peter Kubas and all the Hubers, you know, Lexi, we all grew up together, and now we're sharing these experiences and having little ones to pass them on to.
I love it. Yeah, it's a unique world for sure, you know, and it's like, it's definitely a lot more than just about the dogs. Like the people, the players of the game are just as, if not more important. Let's talk about as far as the sport with engaging new people or people who haven't grown up in the sport of dogs, particularly younger people. What are your thoughts on how that can be accomplished or encouraged?
I think it's very complicated right now. Well, especially regardless of Corona, right. Just because of, I hate to say it, but work ethic. You know, it's hard for us to find assistants. It's hard to find people that actually want to learn. It's hard to find people that want to come and stay and learn. You know, even if you have kids that want to come and help you dry dogs and take them to the ring and help you cover stuff, yeah, that's great. And we obviously need that help. But the kids that need to want to learn and learn how to take care of dogs at home, learn how to condition dogs, learn how to groom the harder coats that there are to groom, and, you know, the quality of care and even just vehicle care and things like that. that's not something you have by the time you're 18. I mean, Phil, literally a couple weeks ago, I was like, hey, can you look at my tires on my motorhome? Like, I know I looked at them, but will you just check them out? Things like that, you know, that like, those aren't
There's no manual for that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and so, and that, you know, the family part definitely comes back into that, right? The people that you can depend on, you know, or who are you going to call when you break down and things like that, that all goes back into it. But as far as engaging young people, I mean, juniors is so important. I'm anti the whole juniors ranking system. I get it. But I think that when we were in juniors, we had more fun because, yeah, we wanted to get our wins and stuff like that for Westminster and Orlando. But that was like our break time, basically. That was when we went to the juniors ring to have fun because we weren't running 12 rings for whoever we were working for and getting dogs ready and stuff. I think that it definitely changed the mentality of it and made it so much more competitive that then I think a lot of kids are like, ooh, this isn't fun. These kids are mean. Like, you know, it's so competitive. So I think we definitely lose kids that way. And then back to the work part, you know, there's so many of them that don't even groom their own dogs and their parents are way more involved. And it's very complicated. As far as getting them involved, when I moved back down to Virginia, I really want to do a 4-H dog club. Loudoun County has a huge 4-H fair, but we don't have a dog club. And actually, my mom was in the dog club there when Damro was the teacher in the 70s. But yeah, so I really want to get that started again. Oh my God,
I didn't know that was the case, that there's not one involved, because I've been to that fair. That's a big fair.
Yeah, and so I really want to get a dog club going there. And I'm also a member of Old Dominion, so I'd like to tie it in with them somehow. And
let's talk about clubs. Like, what has your involvement with clubs been like? Do you think that's something that maybe people need to focus on more of their effort getting involved with?
Absolutely. So I'm 31, and well, no, that's not true. We do have a younger member, Natalie. I think she's 28-ish, but we're literally the only two under 45, probably, is the next youngest member besides us. And it just goes up from there in age groups. And Old Dominion's blessed. We have a huge membership and a lot of active members. That's why we're able to put on the cluster that's coming up. Because we do have some young members that are willing to come and stay and work the 5 days and 7 days really when you look at it in the grand scheme of things. Yeah. And it's definitely something, I mean, clubs really need to reach out and try and get younger members. And I do encourage handlers to do it because people have no idea what it takes to put on shows. It's a lot of work. It's a big commitment. And even just, you know, the logistics of getting judges places and ordering lunches. And, you know, I definitely think Old Dominion is one of those clubs that goes above and beyond that. You know, we have welcome bags, and we have, especially during COVID, we normally have like a really nice fancy lunch. We're still going to try and do the box lunch. It's complicated, all the little things that people don't think about.
Right.
I'm also a member of, both my national clubs, the Basenji and the Waiaha National Club. And I try and help with the Waiaha National whenever I can. And now I'm actually president of our local club, which is the Delaware Valley German Waiaha Pointer Club. So we were able to have our specialty with Bloomsburg. But definitely, I mean, even older people that have been involved in these clubs are not involved like they used to be. I'm not really sure how to fix it. It's complicated, right? You know, the bickering, they pick this judge because they know they want to win and things like that. And you can't have that. Yeah, exactly. Right. You can't have that and move forward with a club. And
especially like your point for handlers too, I think that's a great point to bring up, is that, you know, it's because of the clubs that they have a livelihood.
Yeah.
So it kind of, you know, it's like you pay rent for the space that you that you run your business.
Honestly, this year I normally do not show at Old Dominion. This year, because things are a little bit different, I am going to show. But we also are not going to have the same amount of hospitality, the same amount of judges and things like that. I normally help with the dinner. I normally help with driving judges around. I normally help with taking them to the rings, stuff like that, which I will not be helping with this year so that I can show. But this year is so unprecedented on so many levels, right? Yeah, exactly. But because of that, but I normally, I mean, I take one weekend off a year, actually two, because I normally don't show at the spring show either. But I definitely think it's important to give back. And like you said, without these shows, handlers wouldn't have a place to make money. And even just being involved with a specialty club and things like that, and donating for trophies, things that are so simple, and belonging to, you know, a national club. It all helps, and it's definitely things that we need to keep the sport moving forward.
Right. It doesn't exist on its own. It needs support financially and both manpower. Yeah. We get accustomed to seeing it there, but it doesn't just happen like that.
Right. That's what I mean. Like, I wish there was like a class that they could give for people to understand what it is to put on a dog show, because it's so much. I mean, in show chairs and cluster chairs and things like that. I mean, Chris Berg has done a phenomenal job with putting together the 5 shows that are going to be the weekend before us in Doswell. I mean, he literally put that dog show together in 2 months, which is insane. It's, I mean, just to get a panel together and coordinate with our cluster so that they could use the same grounds and tents and all those kinds of things. You know, it's definitely not about the money at that point, right? He just wanted another set of shows to go along with it, because we haven't had any on the East Coast.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say, are there any great resources for like how somebody can find out which clubs to get involved in? I mean, obviously your parent club for the breeds you're involved in, but as far as like the all breed clubs, how would you recommend someone go about getting involved?
I mean, everybody knows where their closest club is, right? You know, the dog show that's closest to your home. And just when you're at that dog show, you go up and you introduce yourself to a club member, and say, look, I've been wanting to join and, you know, help out, things like that. And you hear stories, of course, of clubs that are closed and are very, very selective with their membership and things like that. They can't be anymore. They need to open up and let people in, especially young people that want to work and help out.
So all you have to do is show up and put yourself out there. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. Let's wrap up with what is one or some of your most memorable experiences in dogs. It can be showing, breeding, exhibiting.
So I'll do 2. One with me showing. I will never forget the first time that I showed in juniors at Westminster. I was still 10. It was like the February, I turned 11 in March, so it was the February before my 11th birthday. And I showed my wire hair, and I'll just never forget that feeling. It was when, you know, everybody was still on the floor, green carpet, you know, 10 deep around the rings. I'll never forget the first time I showed, and Graham actually sent me that picture recently of all of us. It was a good group.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You'll
so
have to
that
send
was
it to
great.
me.
I will. And the most, okay, I'm going to say 2. I don't want to use just the garden, but when Oakley won the group with the garden, I'll never forget that.
You had to say that one. I was waiting for you to say it.
Actually, the Wednesday at the end of the year, we had gone down to Orlando, and the competition was still really tight between Oakley and Peyton. And the sporting group that day, Phil would be able to tell you exactly who judged and all of those things and all the dogs that placed. But I just remember that lineup being like the most incredible lineup of sporting dogs I had ever seen. The quality in that group was amazing, and Oakley got to win. And I don't even remember if he went best in show that day. I don't think that he did, but it didn't matter because that group was like amazing, and it was incredible. And then we had to leave really quickly because we went to Pennsylvania.
What a year.
Yeah.
And then what was your second memory? So there was one more.
Watching Katie win the group with Ty in Royal Canin 2 years ago now. Yeah. No, last year.
last year.
Yeah, last year.
After he recovered from the injury.
Yeah. And it was incredible because I wasn't even going to go to Orlando, and Katie was like, we're going to show Ty, you have to go. Right. Ed came down, and like literally all of Ty's people were there. Like the entire Ty team was there, and it was just incredible. And my husband was bawling like a baby, and we will never let him forget it, just so you know. It was just amazing. It was such an incredible story, and they were like so perfect that night. And it was one of the coolest things to see that for my best friend.
It was magic. And for those who don't know, you traveled with Katie, even as you were pregnant, towards the end of their campaign, and helped her kind of, stay the course while they were campaigning for Top Dog. And then after he had this injury, he came back and had this magnificent group win and looked like $1 million. It was really special. I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today, Kelly. I think you gave some great points, especially about involvement in club activities and keeping the sport going, and then also just really kind of focusing on those relationships and those people that are in your life because of dogs that you never would have met if it weren't for this sport that we all do every weekend.
Really?
Well, it was great to see you, and for everyone at Canine Chronicle TV, stay safe, and thank you again.
Thank you.